Ayan na, kamusta kayo dyan? Maayong, hapon, wala na, ayan na, bulol na tayo. Kamusta na kayo dyan? Medyo, uff, maaga pa, marami tayong mga pag-usapan, mga comments. Of course, mamayang gabi, magkakaroon tayo ng more follow-up this, more discussion this, yan. Kasi dumadoble kara, nag-double booking na yung ating partner sa R&R ay na si Ronald. Okay? So mamayang gabi. Habol natin yan. Pero kagabi, before tayo natulog, biglang nakita natin ito yung mga updates dito sa bagong mga reports na lumalabas kung saan sinasabi na mukhang pagdating sa issue ng confidential fund, this is something that is not new, no? When it comes to certain political figures sa ating bansa, and in particular, habang of course pinag-usapan yung confidential fund ng Vice President natin, confidential fund ng Department of Education, at habang pinag-usapan din, which we'll discuss quite shortly later on, habang pinag-usapan din etong ano bang ginagawa ng Kongreso? Are they trying to flex some muscle there by taking out the confidential fund of certain person? What's going on here? Now, obviously, we hinted at that. We discussed that a bit. Yung issue na yan in previous episodes, including, of course, yung proposal by the Philippine Congress to reallocate some of the confidential funds that were initially pre-proposed for non-security agencies, i.e. DepEd, to actually security-related agencies and particularly external security-related issues, no? Particularly yung West Philippine Sea issue. Bago tayo pumunta doon, tingnan muna natin itong report na lumabas about yung 460 million pesos a year at some point yung confidential funds na meron din si Sara Duterte when she was the mayor of Davao. So this is not the first time na may ganitong confidential fund. But of course, we'll try to be fair because of course we have to also understand when it comes to Davao, Davao has been at the forefront of not only dealing with communist insurgencies and problems like that. Kaya nga si Digong back in the day had to have a lot of interactions with folks from that side of the political spectrum. But also, at some point Davao was almost in the midst of a civil war situation. This is towards the end of the Marcos dictatorship. This is towards transition towards democracy. So maraming gulo nangyari sa Davao. And not to mention, of course, we also had terrorist attacks in Davao. So, in fairness naman sa Davao, you can argue that Davao, and especially if you're the mayor of Davao, you're the chief executive of Davao, you're at the forefront of many serious security issues, including dealing with Maute, dealing with Daesh, ISIS-related groups back in the day, dealing with terrorist groups, dealing with communist groups. So in fairness naman, so we discuss na pagdating sa DepEd, minsan napapaisip ka kung itong DepEd na to, kailangan ba talaga ng malaking confidential fund? Trabaho naman talaga nila is to educate children, kids, minors, di ba? But ibang usapan na pag Davao, no? Ang issue, because Davao, in fairness, if you're the chief executive of Davao, you're the mayor of Davao, there's a lot of serious legitimate security issues to deal with. And not to mention, of course, I remember from my own visits to Davao, no? I could see dun sa my Ateneo de Davao area where I gave a talk before, may makita kang mga armored vehicles, may makita kang mga military officials, etc. So in fairness, pagdating sa issue ng Davao, pagdating sa issue ng being a mayor of Davao, chief executive of Davao, I see more validity to the argument that you need certain funds. Emergency funds, contingency funds, security funds, national security, or in this case, LGU security funds. I get it. But again, does it have to be 460 million? Did it have to be 460 million years after yung situation na nangyari sa Marawi? So those are the other questions that you could ask, no? So I'll try to be fair about this. Again, mamaya siguro dun sa usapan namin ni R&R, I'm sure he has his own point of view on this issue, but I'm just trying to give a objective, fair as much as possible to sa issue, and without also holding back if sometimes we think that certain things are quite problematic, quite questionable. So balikan natin itong mga comments. Mga comments, tingnan natin itong report na lumabas. Ito. So, Siyempre may annual breakdown pa yan, di ba? Ito yung annual breakdown, no? So nakikita natin na significant nag-increase, so probably under 100 million nung panahon ni Digong, yung patakbo na siyang presidente. And then what we're saying is this balloons to almost 300 million next year, and then it stays within the range of 400 million, and multiple years you have around 460 million base dito sa report na nakuha na meron tayo dito, no? So let's go to the article itself para naman makita nyo ano po yung argumento ng article na ito, right? So saan ka na? Okay, so ito, so ayon dito sa report na ito, post ko rin yung link dito sa baba. Report by of course Forks, our progressive folks reporters. Yeah, ito. The Davao City Government's annual confidential expenses ballooned from 144 million pesos in 2016 nung si Digong ay paalis na, papunta na sa Malacanang. Of course, surprise, surprise, one of the biggest political events of 2016 next to Brexit and the victory of Donald Trump. Nagballoon na to sa 460 million nung naging si Sara Duterte yung mayor ng Davao. Documents showed that the local government had set aside 144 million dun sa confidential funds in 2016, with the first half of this allocation falling under the mayorship of Rodrigo Roa Duterte, who of course would end up as the president. Now, by June of that year, June of 2022, naging vice president naman yung anak niya. Pero, well, it should be also mentioned that in June, of course, of 2016, right? Nagkaroon ng bagong mayor. Now, in 2017, during yung administration ni Sara, Davao City's confidential expenses more than doubled to 293 million, marking a substantial increase dun sa 100. So, this is an increase of 103.5% compared to the preceding year. No? So, tingnan natin ito. Ito mga kamets talaga. So, ito yung mga confidential fund na tinitingnan natin. So, ang laki nung jump, di ba? Boom. Yung mga comments natin dyan sa YouTube, huwag kayong magalala. Lalabas natin yung version nito mamaya. So, nakikita nyo talaga, right? Lumalaki at lumalaki. So, more than doubled, no? From 2016 to 2017. And now, nag-increase na naman further nung 2018 to 420 million, reflecting a 3.34% surge from the previous year. And then, umakyat na naman noong 2019, yung allocation grew to 460 million and remain fixed at that amount for the next 3 years in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Ito mga dokumento na pinapakita na Davao City Government set aside over 2.6 billion pesos in total for confidential expenses over the past 7 years, with an annual expenditure of 460 million since 2020. Yung amount na yan po ay nag-surpass ng confidential spending of even the most affluent cities sa ating bansa. So I don't think whether Makati City, Quezon City, ito yung mga malalaking syudad, ito yung mga mayaman na syudad, had anything close to that. Based dito sa financial records, pendant to an annual audit report, sabi ng local government, it had 2.69 so 2.7 billion pesos in confidential expenses from 2016 to 2022. Yung figure na yan translate on an annual average expenditure of approximately 385 million pesos over the last several years under the category of MOE, Maintenance and Other Operating Expenses. So since 2019, the Davao City Government allocated 460 million. So dire-diretso na yan, no? So, etong comparison, no, interestingly. Sana may graph tayo for ito, So, yung comparison ng Davao City's confidential fund spending to that other major cities including Makati City, Manila, Quezon City, Cebu City, lahat sila mas mayaman ng husto, both in per capita income and overall GDP, pero incomparable, no? So, based dun sa 2022 MOE ng Cebu City, it had an allocation of 7 million pesos for payment for confidential intelligence extraordinary funds, marking an increase of 1.96 million from the 5.42 million reported. City government naman of Manila at confidential fund expenditure of 120 million for both 2021 and 2022. And Makati, pinakamayaman in per capita income and second wealthiest in terms of overall income, recorded a confidential expenses of 240 million pesos for both 2021 and 2022. Samantala, ang Quezon City naman, which has held the title of the wealthiest city not in per capita but in overall economic output for the past 3 years, ang kanyang allocated confidential expenses amounted to 100 million pesos in 2021 and 75 million pesos in 2022. Oh, so ito ilabas ko dito para kitang-kita nyo talaga mga kamets. So again, comparison is very important because that gives you a sense of scale. That gives you a sense of ano yung pinag-usapan natin dito. Now, we're fair. So clearly, sobrang next level, no? Yung expenditure dito, kumpara dun sa mga mas malalaking syudad na nakikita natin. Wait lang, ba't nawala? Post ko lang dito yung breakdown ng expenditure to the different cities. So, ang layo, di ba? Ang layo. No, Davao is not the richest city in the country, neither in per capita or total. Pero kung titingnan natin itong comparison sa other cities, ang laki ng confidential fund ng Davao. No? So, ito, kitang-kita nyo dito. Okay? Sa baba. Or ako na lang tataas. Ito na lang ibaba ko. Ito, baba natin dito. Okay. Ayan. Okay. So, kita nyo dito sa baba, di ba? Ang laki nung agwat ng Davao with other cities. So, the question here is, what is the rational or possible legitimate explanation for that? Now, speaking of rational legitimate explanation, or potentially rational legitimate explanation, of course, sasabihin naman ng supporters or sasabihin ng iba na, well, of course, Davao, unlike some of the other cities that were mentioned, like Cebu, for instance, and to a lesser degree, Manila. Well, speaking of Manila and Makati, etc., we know that we have also had incidents here. Multiple coups dito sa Manila and Makati. We had also suspected terrorist attacks, etc., and a lot of plots. So it's not like Manila is not important, it's not been targeted. But of course, the argument of Davao will be they are at the forefront, no, of war on terror, and of course, dun sa 2017, unfortunately, we had that incident of bombing in Davao, at marami sa ating mga kababayan sa Davao ay of course were severely affected by this. Marami po mga biktima, marami po yung mga casualties. At sabi ko nga, katulad nung sinasabi natin kanina, personally, when I was in Davao myself, I nakita ko talaga na very hyperactive sila, no? Pagdating sa kanilang seguridad, may mga armored vehicles dun sa mga key areas, dun sa mga malapit dun sa mga crowded areas, malapit dun sa mga bazaars. And then of course in 2017, as you would know, a few months after dun sa incident nito sa Davao, in terrorist attack in Davao, you had even a bigger crisis in Mindanao, 'di ba? And ito yung nangyaring crisis sa Marawi, 'di ba? Yung crisis sa Marawi, when ISIS affiliated Daesh affiliated Maute groups laid siege on the city, and the next thing you know, ang gulo na nangyari nun. So what happened back then was President Duterte placed entire Mindanao under indefinite martial law. So everything I'm explaining here, mga kameta, is to explain to you that, syempre, huwag natin kalimutan na Davao has been a frontline city. Especially nung panahon ni Digong, no? When we had a lot of this very serious national security crisis. Now, for me, that's also ironic because Tatay Digong was supposed to be napakagaling. Tatay Digong was supposed to be napaka law and order. Tatay Digong was supposed to bring 6 months, gawin tayong Singapore, mga ganyan-ganyan. And yet, it was during his time na nangyari lahat ng mga ganito malalaking crisis na yan. So that tells you about hindi ganun kagaling yung kanyang leadership, to put it mildly. No? Because kung magaling talaga leadership niya, he would have acted on proper intelligence. Because I know for a fact, I've been told by people who were involved in the intelligence gathering na meron intelligence dun sa plano ng Maute. But for some reason, pumalpak, hindi nag-act yung mga leadership over that. And that gave the initiative to mga groups. No? Now, one reason perhaps is because sobrang obsessed yung dating pangulo natin dun sa war on drugs na isa pang kapalpakan pag tinignan mo talaga yung katotohanan in terms of sustainable ba yung solution, sustainable over time ba talagang yung mga big fish ba, did they go down? I'm not sure about that. So, but let's park that for a moment and let's go back to this. So, again, to be fair, there is this element of special risk perhaps that Davao is facing or Davao has faced in the past. Communist insurgency on one hand, terrorist attacks on the other, Mindanao being under martial law. But the question again is, yung agwat ng national security threats na hinaharap ng Davao kumpara dun sa mga ibang malalaking syudad, o sabihin natin Cebu siguro not at the same level, right? But alam natin when there were events, I think also in Cebu and some of the Visayan cities during ASEAN in 2017, there were some security issues also, no? But okay, i-park natin yan. Sabihin natin, sige, Cebu, maybe not. Pero it's not like Makati, it's not like Quezon City, seat of government, seat of power in the Philippines is not a target, no? Again, of course, the situation on thankfully at least in Luzon is not as unstable. But the question is, bakit ganong kalaki yung agwat ng confidential fund ng Davao kumpara dun sa confidential fund ng Manila? Has Davao been that much more unsafe or that much more vulnerable, no, to national security threats than the other cities? So again, ito yung mga amounts, no? Right? So again, tanggap natin. So let's accept for the sake of argument, and in fairness naman, legitimate yung argument na yan, na Davao is more susceptible or has been more susceptible to attacks. But has Davao been 3 times, 4 times, 10 times more vulnerable than Cebu, let's say? Or 5 times, 3 times, 2 times more vulnerable, let's say, than Makati? So again, Makati, pinakamayaman na city in terms of per capita. Second pinakamayaman, confidential fund niya is 240 million. Right? So around 65 to 70%, no? Of dun sa budget ng Davao. Yung Quezon City po, napakalaki, pinakamalaking ekonomiya. If you look at the LGU, etc., yung kanyang confidential fund, when it was 460 million in Davao, it was only 75 million or at most 100 million sa Quezon City. And let's not forget, Quezon City is the seat of power. So obviously, it is a target. Right? And Makati, ilan bang kudeta sa nangyari sa Makati? Si Trillanes pa lang, nakailang kudeta na siya sa Makati nung time na yan. Diba? And then of course, in the case of Cebu City, of course, I agree that malayo yung security threats sa Cebu kumpara sa Davao. But Cebu's expenditure was 7 million pesos. So are you saying that Davao was what? 460 divided by 7? Like, ganun ba kalaki? Like more than 10 times, no? Yung FET, no? More than 20, 30 times. Diba? So yun yung tanong natin ngayon, diba? You know, like this is like more what 50 times more yung budget ng. So is Davao 50 times more vulnerable than Cebu when it comes to like national security threats? So yun yung po yung mga tanong natin dyan. So again, for the sake of argument, let's accept. And again, empirically, tanggap ko na ang Davao is perhaps more vulnerable, but is it that more vulnerable? The next question I would ask is dates. So medyo naintindihan ko yung malaking budget siguro or paglaki ng budget ng 2016 to 2017 and 2018 because ito yung Marawi times, ito yung martial law sa Mindanao times. Pero was the threat level the same in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022? Again, I want to hear a proper argument on that. Again, as I said, maintindihan ko bakit lumaki yung budget from 2016 to 2017. Ang tanong sa akin is, bakit ang lalong lumaki yung 2019, 2020, di ba tapos na yung martial law sa Mindanao? Bakit ililift yung, bakit na-lift yung martial law sa Mindanao? Because nga, the assessment was the threat was significantly diminished, di ba? So kung significantly diminished, bakit lumaki ng gusto doon sa kanila, di ba? Sa Davao. So that's the other question. So yes, there was still the state of emergency, but the martial law was lifted. No? So again, I understand. So no one is saying dapat walang national security funds or related funds. No one is saying walang threat sa Davao. But the question that has to be explained is, bakit ganito yung figures even after na-lift na yung martial law sa Davao, sa Mindanao, sorry, sa Mindanao, and state of emergency lang yung meron tayo, 'di ba? So no one is saying nothing, there's no reason whatsoever. But then again, there has to be some explanation bakit lumaki pa yung budget na yan over time. And bakit ang laki niya kumpara doon sa mga malalaking ibang syudad, including yung mga seat of power and seat of business of the Philippines. Yung heart of the Philippine economy and government is not in Davao. It's here in Makati, is here in Quezon City. Diba? Yung mga ganitong factors na dapat titignan natin. So, province, sorry, or LGU, local government unit pa rin yung pinag-usapan po natin dito, di ba? So, yun yung po yung sinasabi natin kasi Davao City po, hindi province. Eh, yung mga nagko-comment dyan, city po ang pinag-usapan natin dito, ha? Kinakorek mo yung sarili mo, sorry. Ayan, nag-away-away na to. Alright, so, yun po yung konteksto na sinasabi natin. Ako naman, mga kameta, for me, we need some level of explanation. Hindi mo pwede sabihin na dahil confidential yung fund yan, wala kayong pakialam, wala na explanation. No, because no less than Tatay Digong at some point said, di ba, whiff of corruption pa lang, dapat out ka na sa government. So you had Tatay Digong himself once saying that. No, now, of course, we can talk about how formally, kamusta mga, okay. We can talk about many things, but ang point ko is, if ang stance ni Digong was one whiff of corruption and you're out, then we have to be really, really strict about explaining bakit ganyan kalaki yung mga confidential funds na meron tayo, di ba? So, yun lang. Yun lang mga kameta, yun lang po yung mga sinasabi natin dito. So, again, to be fair, Davao has been at the forefront of many, many threats, right? Davao has faced many, many challenges and continues to face a lot of challenges. I understand that as the chief executive of Davao, as a mayor, you need to have sufficient resources, intelligence, etc. to deal with yung mga threats, real and present danger sa ating mga kababayan na Davaoenyo. I completely understand that. All we're saying is that perhaps there should be some explanation around why the amount ay lalong lumaki even when the martial law was lifted, or why the amount is so big compared to other major cities, including the seat of power and the seat of economic power of the Philippines. Now, why the spread is 3 to 1, 4 to 1, or 50 to 1, or something like that. Diba? So, parang, bakit ang laki? Diba? So, yun ang mga bagay na dapat hintayin natin na explanations. Now, I want to talk about other things, mga kameta, including itong dynamics sa Congress potentially removing confidential fund for non-security agencies, i.e. for DepEd for next year. But I'll leave that for later on na lang with si paring Ronald na lang. Pag-usapan na lang natin later on yan. Pero ito yun ang sinasabi ko. Dapat ganito tayo mag-analyze, mga kameta. When we discuss itong mga issue na to, you look at different sides of these issues and then you make assessment. Hindi yung kagad punta ka lang, banatan lang kagad, or punta ka lang i-defend na kagad. Tignan mo yung different aspects and then make an assessment. So for me, we're not saying that any anomaly has happened, but to clarify things and to clear the air and to push back against insinuations that something anomalous is happening, I think it's good na magkakaroon tayo ng explanation why certain gaps, why certain increases at certain years when the threat is supposed to be on the downhill. Remember, di ba, sinabi ng Duterte administration towards then, natalo na, tapos ng NPA, etc. So, wala pala masyadong threat ng communist insurgency. Yung Bangsamoro, 2019 onwards, things were moving in the right direction. So was really the threat from communist insurgency and from religious extremists as big in 2019-20, so that its budget is even bigger than 2017? When there was really a threat in many ways, and sige, push natin yung argument to 2018, but why 2020? Why 2021? So, yung mga ganyan tanong, no? So that's why I'm saying you have to be fair and put things into context and then analyze and then raise the right question. At yun nga, ganito, lahat na lang gawa na lang tayo ng confidential fund, tapos pag tinanong, hindi, confidential kasi, di ba? there should be certain parameters and there should be certain explanations around it. So I think it will be nice if there's explanation around it. Now, the big question for me is, bakit itong sunod-sunod nangyari? So, for instance, itong news item na galing sa for instance, the news items na galing sa Rappler in this case, no? Of course, it remains to be seen whether it's gonna be questioned by others, but my sense is naman, hindi nila ilalabas yun kung wala talagang silang documents. But why the access to documents now? Why not before? Why a report like this now? Why not before? Diba? Yung mga ganito. So bakit ngayon, sunod-sunod itong mga reports dun sa confidential fund? Is there something going on here? Is there something bigger going on here? Right? So yun yung mga tanong natin ngayon, diba? Which I'll leave for our discussion, God willing, tonight. Pupunta pa tayo sa klase natin. Turo muna tayo. Okay, teacher duties muna. But tonight, tuloy natin itong discussion natin. Let's look at also the aspect of the Congress. Let's also look at the aspect of commensurability, proportionality between the confidential fund, increases and trend lines in the confidential fund, and then trend lines in terms of national security threats, including to frontline cities like Davao. And also in comparison with Manila and other big cities. Alright? So tignan natin lahat yan. Again, perspective, magnitude, proportionality. So no one is saying dapat walang fund whatsoever to deal with national security in Davao. No one is saying that. What we're explaining, what we're asking is, what explains itong gaps na ito, itong trend lines na ito? Is there an alignment between the increase in threat and increase in the funding? There should be a logic, there should be a foundation, and perhaps would be nice to hear some explanations on that in the coming days or so, para wala nang mga innuendos or wala nang mga bahit na duda. No, as President Digong said, dapat walang even whiff of corruption. So if we clear that, then I think we can move forward. Otherwise, nako, maging mas malalim na naman issue na ito, and who knows what else is gonna come out. Alright? On that note, thank you very much mga kameta. Maraming salamat sa mga lahat ng mga nagmamahal sa sumusuporta sa atin. Again, tingnan nyo, we're fair, we're mabait. Yan, dami mga nag-comment dyan. Si Mike Kayugan, ayan, may nagsabi naman dyan, may nilulutan na daw. Lutong hindi na Macau. Tapos na yung China. Noemi Tablate. Thank you very much, Mia Fresnido. Nagnutap, Yethma, yan, yung mga nagmamahal sa atin, Jay Carpenter, Rizani. Bala na kayo dyan, mag-analyze na kayo dyan. By confidential fund rin pala yung may ibang city pala. Andyan na nga pinost ko nga, basahin nyo nga yan, andyan na nga. Post ko rin yung link dun sa mga datas and all yan para you can read it on your own. Mamaya natin discuss yung mga congressional dynamics naman kasi interesting din yung aspeto na yan, alright? Thank you very much mga kamets, and talk to you soon. God bless.